Hello and welcome to the Game Theory NBA Draft Show. Today, Bryce Simon and I are going to talk a little bit about the Champions Classic. We'll talk about one of our big risers of the early season in Kingston Flemings. We will talk about Illinois a little bit, and then we'll probably just give some news and notes and things that we've seen across the scouting equation to this point. But now, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? It is Thanksgiving break, which means I am off from school all week long. And all I have to do every day is watch basketball, which is a lot of fun and really nice to do.
Let's dive in then and just talk through basketball. Again, this is the NBA Draft Show, so we will be talking about NBA draft prospects throughout this thing. But before we do that, we do want to shout out the Game Theory Substack, GameTheorySamV.substack.com. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. We've got a breakdown of Kingston Flemings. Bryce just did one of Andrei Stojakovic. I did one earlier last week of AJ Debinsa against UConn. At some point, I'm probably going to have to do Cam Boozer. I might do the Cam Boozer game from Champions that we'll talk about here in a second. I might wait until we get something else. I'm kind of like holding on Cam for reasons that we'll talk about throughout this thing. But GameTheorySamV.substack.com. That's the best way to support the show. We appreciate everybody that comes through and hits that subscribe button. Bryce, let's talk about Champions Classic here at the start. So Champions Classic was interesting this year insofar as there was a lot of excitement about the potential Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson matchup that unfortunately never eventuated because Darren Peterson is dealing with some sort of hamstring injury right now, where unfortunately he just has been able to play as much as we would have liked to have seen Darren to this point. That meant that Kansas was a bit under-talented because this Kansas team without Darren Peterson is quite under-talented, in my opinion. Michigan State is a team that, you know, all due respect to some of their older guys, like Jeremy Fierce Jr. had this unbelievable game, I thought, in that one to completely make Kentucky's life absolutely miserable at the point of attack, and then was great as a distributor throughout. And then on top of it, Kentucky is without Jaden Quaintance. And then they're also without Jalen Lowe, where he's a huge part of being able to get any sort of paint touches for that team. So 3 of the 4 teams were either in some way down from an NBA draft perspective or one that, you know, teams weren't all that excited about, or they were quite hurt. Do you feel like you were able to take things away from this Champions Classic in the way that we typically are?
No, because of what you said there. Like, we were missing guys. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, you know, we saw Boozer against, you know, a still somewhat talented Kansas team, a Kansas team that does have some size with the Dunga, and, you know, and Duke just has multiple guys that, you know, I think are worth evaluating right now, and including Isaiah Evans, Sarr, Kaminia off the bench as well. So that was good. Not getting to see Darren Peterson against Boozer was obviously disappointing. And, you know, but Kansas does have some other guys. You know, you've mentioned Cole Rosario on this before. Bryson Tiller is a guy that people like to talk about and are interested in. So I think that game in particular, I had multiple tabs open as I watched. The Kentucky-Michigan State game just didn't have the same level of even kind of, you make mental notes of guys and what you think about them, but just definitely didn't have as many like, okay, I need to have tabs open. I need to have my docs out. So I'm taking notes on all of these guys as the Kansas and Duke game at least still had.
Yeah, let's start with the Kansas Duke game because I think that's where everyone wants us to start. Duke is out to a 7-0 start to the year. Cam Boozer has very much dominated the bad teams that they've played, like, earlier today, they played Howard, and we record these on Sunday for people that know. I think people do know that. He had 26 points on 10 of 12 from the field with 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 0 turnovers, and like completely obliterated Howard and like wiped them off the map. And against Indiana State, he had 35 on, I think it was 13 of 16 from the field and 12 rebounds and 5 assists, right? Against Texas, though, we talked about that game. 15 points on 3 for 12 from the field, 9 of 12 from the line, and 12 rebounds. Against Kansas, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 turnovers, but shot 7 of 17 from the field again. And I kind of gave like a bit of a take. I went on Kevin O'Connor's show and I wrote this for last Thursday as well on kind of where I'm at on the Boozer experience at this point. But before I give that, like, I'll just kind of give you the floor. Like, do you feel like we're learning anything about Cam Boozer in these games where he plays teams that actually have like the length and size and athleticism to give him problems?
Yeah, I mean, because we've seen it give him problems. And that was one of my worries coming into the year in terms of being a top 3 pick. And we think that context is always important. On Monday, we talked about the New York Knicks, and it was important to give the context that we were talking about them in regards to being a title contender in the East. With Cam Boozer, when we give these critiques or questions or things we want to see, to me, it's like evaluating him as a top 3 pick with Devonta, with Darren Peterson. I've really enjoyed the passing. I think he's a better passer and quick decision maker than what I gave him credit for coming into the year. But one of my questions was, as a below the rim finisher, was it going to be an issue? And against the 2 bigger, quote unquote, programs that had some size, it was an issue against Texas. And I thought it was even a bigger issue against Kansas. I literally wrote, Sam, I don't know how you watch this game and don't have at least some concerns about this finishing for a player where I think that's part of his appeal is he's going to be able to score and finish in the paint. And it's been an issue in 2 of the biggest games thus far. Now, can he figure it out? Maybe he will. And we'll see. But I think through those 2 games specifically, I think it's at least worth continuing to have some questions.
I think that's right. And I think that my current theory on this with Boozer is this is a guy that like came to be this size very early on in his life, right? Like he looked like this when, he's maybe grown a couple inches since he was a freshman, but like he looked like this when he was like a freshman and sophomore in high school, right? And I think because of that, it's always been somewhat easy for him to score at the rim. So instead of improving and deciding to focus on improving, some of the more nuanced, like skill-based footwork things that a player like Cam Boozer would need to have in the NBA when he's going against, guys that are 7 foot and super long and super strong and everything like that. I think that he decided to focus on improving his perimeter game and improving his shooting ability and understanding where his passing reads are and improving his handle away from the rim and understanding how to play in ball screens as a ball handler, right? And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I think it's a totally reasonable thing for him to have focused on. And he's like, by all accounts, a real worker. Like there's no, I've not heard anybody on the NBA side, any of the intel stuff that I've done, like no worries there. It's not like he hasn't worked at all. I just wonder if the next step for him is that now that he's finally facing resistance, he will have to improve some of the footwork stuff, because that's, I think, what's been a bit disappointing to me to this point is I don't think his footwork on drives has been all that nuanced, and on gathers has been all that nuanced yet. I think that he just continues to load up, decide to try and go up off 2 feet, go through guys and try and score. And it's just really hard to do that when you go up against guys that are bigger and stronger than you, and maybe not stronger than you, but even just bigger than you, and have real length. Like Flory Badunga is probably about Cam Boozer's height, but he's a 7'4" wingspan, right? And you look at Texas, like Texas had multiple guys in there that were 6'9" to 7 foot tall and could make his life a little bit more challenging. So it's not a question of if Cam Boozer will fix this to me. It's more of a question of how does he go about fixing it, and when does that come along? Cam Boozer's too talented, in my opinion, to not figure out that this is an issue. But to what level can he adjust? He's a player that I don't know about you. Like, I don't look at him and think he has like immense hip flexibility or anything like that. So some of the like Euro steps that you see like Debanza do won't look quite as smooth or sweet when Cam Boozer does them. But we see guys in the league that are, thicker and wider. Like we talk about Derek Queen all the time. Like Derek Queen can do this stuff, right? So to me, it's a matter of he just needs to focus on it, needs to work through some of the problems that he has right now finishing. And I hope it comes this season. It might come in the off season, whatever it is. At the end of the day, though, this is a guy that's still at 18, 10, and 5 against a Kansas team that was, pretty, at the very least, is like a top 40 team in the country without Darren Peterson. I don't know if maybe they're a top 50 team. I don't know exactly where they fall necessarily, but he at least, I think, showed, particularly when he gets doubled, what the passing looks like. He understands immediately where doubles are coming from. I thought it was so funny to watch the way that they just completely doubled him every time he touched the ball on the block within 15 feet of the rim. There were times where like they would collapse 3 guys onto him and it would leave somebody open from distance. I thought that he still played. To me, it's all about the fact that like when you watch Cam Boozer, the process is right. He knows when he's open from 3 and should take threes. He understands where the doubles are coming from, and he hits the doubles with great timing and great accuracy. Like, I think it still works. It's just, does it work at the level of AJ Debanza and Darren Peterson? And to me, like, I've had Darren at number 1. I haven't seen anything in the games that Darren has played yet to change that. But, AJ, I had Boozer ahead of AJ to start the year personally. And I'm at least like stopping and thinking about that a little bit more, because I think that some of the things that AJ shows as a driver, with his ability to get to the rim consistently, his ability to draw fouls consistently, some of the craft that he shows there is interesting, even though I have so many more questions about what he does outside of creating shots, like the shooting, the honestly, the handle from the perimeter is a real question, even when he's trying to create shots, right? Like, he's great with his gathers. He is not great as a ball handler when he gets blitzed and things like that. Defensively, it's been a real mixed bag for Debanza, and I think Boozer's been pretty good defensively. Like, if you made me say who I think has been the better player this year, I think I would still say Cam Boozer, even though AJ, I'm like looking at the way his game could translate to the NBA with wider driving lanes and with his ability to potentially grow even further as a ball handler. I think there's a case for having him ahead of Boozer if you want to have it. The good news is we don't have to make this decision for 4 months, 5 months, realistically 6, 8 months until the draft is. But there are things that both of them do that have at least like made me stop and think about things. You know what I mean?
I mean, Boozer's just production is ridiculous. And I was going to make that point too. Even in the Kansas and Texas game, in the Texas game, especially because he got to the free throw line so much, he still, averaged 16.5 points and 12 rebounds between those 2 games, along with 3.5 assists. Here's what's even better. Duke's schedule, 4 of the next 5 games leading up to December 20th. Arkansas on Thursday this week, then Florida on Tuesday the next week, and we know what that front line is. Michigan State on the Saturday after that, who always has bigs that are just going to compete and work hard and be physical, have Lipscomb, and then they play Texas Tech on the 20th, which has JT Toppin. So we are going to get real answers and at the very least real data and sample size with 4 of their next 5 games. That would give us 6 games of their 12. Over half of their games would be against high major competition, most of which is in the top 25. That's going to give us a great sample to evaluate him on. And if he's not successful, then a great sample for him to go and learn from to continue out, the rest of his freshman season. So not only do we have a lot of time for this to figure out, but we're going to get even better data over the next month from him as well.
Yeah. So just if you want to be like a stats guy on this with Boozer, in his 2 games against Kansas and Texas, 44 true shooting percentage. We have seen the turnover rate spike to 11 as compared to 6% during the other games. Block rate at 1.4 versus 5.6 on the full season. Steal rate 1.7 versus 3.4 on the full season. Just in general, let's see where it goes against good teams, and let's kind of set aside where we are and see where we are in 2 or 3 weeks is kind of the reality of where I am with Cam Boozer at this point. And he's still an outstanding prospect, and I'm so excited to watch him. And I think there's a real chance I end up with him at number 1 at the end of the year. It hasn't been sweet for the first 2 games against high major competition, I think is what I would say. Even though he's producing at a totally reasonable level to where you would expect for a number 1 overall pick in terms of box score counting stats. Anybody else on Duke before we kind of move on and zoom through some of these other teams?
I mean, the only guy I find myself always gravitating to in terms of interest is Isaiah Evans. So I'm curious where you stand with Evans as an obviously guy that can really shoot the basketball. We know the NBA values that. He's at 38% on almost 7 attempts. That's before this game on Sunday night. I don't know how he shot it tonight.
35-6 in total now.
35. Okay. My thing is, listen, he's not good defensively, but I do think he's taken a leap defensively, at least with his effort and disruption. He stepped in and took a charge on Bryson Tiller in that game against Kansas. I don't know if you can trust anything else he does offensively. I find myself much more interested right now in Isaiah Evans than I ever was last season. And for that reason, I at least wanted to get where your pulse is on him.
Isaiah Evans is someone I'm very likely to have somewhere 20 to 40 at the end of the day. I don't know where it'll be. It'll be dependent on where he ends up throughout the course of the season. He is, to me, like an Isaiah Joe starter kit is kind of the idea, where skinnier guy, 6'6", you run him off all sorts of crazy actions. But the difference between him and Isaiah Joe as sophomores is that I think Isaiah was a little bit more creative off the bounce and had a little bit more to be able to threaten defenses with after they close out on him. Right. I think Evans is getting better at that. It's not like it was last year where he didn't take 2-point jumpers basically, but this year he's a cutter. He will occasionally attack a closeout here and there. The passing is a thing that has gotten a little bit better as well. He's had 3 assists, I think, in 4 or 5 of their games this year. I think where I'm at is I totally buy it as a weapon, but it was funny. I was talking to somebody that works for a team, earlier this year, or I think really it was a week ago. And what he brought up was this idea that we think about these guys all the time, and, probably more often than not, they look more like Jordan Hawkins than they do Isaiah Joe. Right. Yeah. So people think shooting is this skill that just automatically translates no matter what. And I don't know that that's necessarily been proven to be the case at this point.
Sure. No, I mean, it is interesting. There's always these things where it's I was talking to somebody about this the other day. What is it in a two-way player? Why do certain two-way players succeed over others? An example right now, Dennis Jenkins with Detroit. I think Drew Smith with Miami is one that's, getting rotation minutes. What what is it about those guys that are making them succeed over other guys that are having to take similar paths? And it's the same thing with this. What is it about the translation of shooting that has made Duncan Robinson successful and Jordan Hawkins not successful through the first part of his career? Is there something specifically with the shooting? Is it the leveraging the shooting into other opportunities that's enough of an X factor? Obviously, Duncan Robinson has just made shots at a rate that somebody like Hawkins hasn't yet. But it is interesting to kind of track those things and get a better feel for which of these guys succeed. And is there some sort of common theme between the ones that do, the Isaiah Joes, and the ones that don't?
Yeah. I mean, the other guy that I will bring up from Duke is Pat Ngongba. 6'11", big body dude. Can really initiate from the top, like is a good passer. Can you can run actions for him at the top of the key and at the high post, and he can make plays and pass the ball. The thing that worries me is I'm not really sure right now how he scores at the NBA level, because I don't like he's just not like a guy that is like an above the rim finisher for his size, right? Like he doesn't have that explosiveness off the ground that even somebody like Mitchell Robinson does, is like a low usage, rim running big. And obviously you can use him as like high post and he can pass and play make, but like he's not like Derek Queen where he can dribble and drive and like that's a threat. He does have good hands, like I will say that, but the turnover rate is not great. Like he's a 19 turnover rate right now. Defensively, he's a little bit slower than what I want him to be, despite, and like, block some shots, not like a massive shot blocker necessarily. I think I'm still trying to wrap my head around what it is with Ngongba. There are real skills that I value for the NBA, but there are also some real flaws here. And additionally, the thing that I will bring up is like NBA teams have talked to me about this already. Like they're going to want to get like significant imaging of the foot that he is injured. I believe, I know he injured it in high school, but then, coming into last season, I think he was dealing with the foot injury as well. So I think that like the health factor for Ngongba is one that teams want to get a really good look at as well.
Yeah, I see his name just a lot higher than where I have him right now, which is, I think the passing is interesting. Some of the skill level, you mentioned the running offense threw him at the top of the key. I just don't watch him right now and think he's dynamic enough on either end of the floor, defensively or with the rest of his offensive game, to get overly excited. Now, again, like we've mentioned, we have 25 plus games for that to change. Obviously, every time I turn on Duke, I'll be taking notes and watching him closer, but not a guy that I've spent a ton of time being super, super interested just yet, at least not in the way I see a lot of other people being interested in him.
Yeah. Okay. Speed round. So Michigan State, Kentucky. I don't know that I need to talk about anybody on Kansas, to be honest with you. Badunga was okay, but it wasn't a crazy performance or anything. Yep. Kentucky, I think the guy that played at the Champions Classic that I'm most interested in is Malachi Moreno. He came off the bench in that game and then started their most recent game against Loyola Maryland. Had 4 blocks, had 8 rebounds, 10 points in that game. I actually did watch a little bit of that game. He was pretty good, I thought. The Michigan State game, I thought he was pretty good as well. Consistently drew fouls. I think he very clearly should be starting ahead of Brandon Garrison for them. I think their offense just runs a little bit smoother with him out there. Cam Williams would be another guy that I have some interest in, just as like a 3-and-D guy, but he needs to improve as his overall ball skills. I don't think you can really be in the NBA without being able to like dribble and handle the ball at that level anymore. Anybody on Kentucky that like really truly stands out?
No, I mean, Owe was a guy coming into the year, but I mean, that just wasn't a game where, I mean, I watched just like as a watcher of basketball, but I don't think I came away with overwhelming notes or guys that moved up my board or I created a new Google Doc about as I'm watching the game. So just, what wasn't one that really stood out to me in terms of an NBA draft perspective.
Yeah. And then final, your favorite Michigan State prospect?
TBD.
Yeah. I would say one of Jordan Scott or Cam Ward is.
I was going to say Cam Ward was probably would have been my answer. Yeah.
Yeah. One of Jordan Scott or Cam Ward is the answer for me. We'll see what they develop into. I don't think either of those guys are NBA players after this season, obviously. But Fears had a great game in that game. I do want to give him some flowers. I'm not really Cohen Carr guy necessarily as an NBA guy. Maybe he just becomes like, powerful Derek Jones and I'm missing something there. But, again, I think Cohen Carr is probably, back to Michigan State next year if you made me bet even. So yeah, my two guys there are Jordan Scott and Cam Carr, or Jordan Scott and Cam Ward. I'm sorry.
Yep.
For sure. Okay. Before we move on, we're going to shout out the friends over at Nutrafol. If you're dealing with hair issues like thinning or shedding, but feel totally stuck on what to try next, there can be so many products out there. It's just hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That is exactly why it's worth giving Nutrafol a closer look. It's not just hype. It's physician formulated, clinically tested, and even recommended by dermatologists. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and they're NSF Contents certified, the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code Game Theory. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code Game Theory. That's Nutrafol.com. Promo code Game Theory. We're also going to shout out our friends over at CashApp. The holidays are all about finding the perfect gift, but this time of year, not every deal is actually what it seems. Scammers are getting more creative to trick people into sharing their payment info through methods like fake shopping sites and giveaways that are too good to be true. Luckily, Cash App's 24/7 fraud monitoring helps detect and alert you for unusual card activity should someone gain access to your card, so you can act fast if something seems off. You can also lock or unlock your Cash App card instantly right in the app for extra control and peace of mind. Stay one step ahead of scams this season and keep your money secure with Cash App. For a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash for real. Just download Cash App, use our exclusive referral code SECURE10 in your profile. That's SECURE10. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days and you will get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's banking partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Incorporated brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Okay, Bryce, our big winner of the week really is one that kind of won late last week, but I want to talk about this guy. Houston guard Kingston Flemings. I think Kingston Flemings looks awesome at Houston, and I think he looks pretty clearly like a one and done right now. I do want to see where the shooting settles at the end of the day, and the defense is really up and down from what I've seen. But he looks like a one and done should look through 5 games, in my opinion. His last 4 games, he's been Houston's best player or one of their best players at the very least. 20 against Towson, 19 against Oakland, 22 against Auburn, 18 against Ryder. Had 5 rebounds and 7 assists in that Auburn game as well, and was absolutely terrific. 6'3", 6'4" guard, not skinny, like pretty strong and powerful. It looks like when I watch him. What are your impressions of Kingston Fleming out of Houston so far?
So this was, I want to be completely transparent, not a guy on my radar at all coming into this season. I have only watched one Houston game. I've kind of taken up the same idea that you have in terms of a lot of these guys I'm only going to watch against certain competition. That's nothing against low major, mid majors. I played at a low major. I love them, but it is what it is. I didn't turn on the Houston Auburn game to watch Kingston Flemings, Sam. That's not why I turned on that game. And very rarely when I turn on a game to watch everybody else, JoJo Tugler, Chris Sanek, everybody else, does somebody else catch my eye? And this dude who I was not familiar with going into the watch just kept catching my eye over and over and over. And, eventually I looked it up and then you brought it up and I have, the burst is ridiculous. His ability to break down the defense in that game was ridiculous. Obviously he's shooting the ball from the field really well right now. I have the same note. How good is the 3-point shot? Does it hold moving forward? Can he, replicate these things in games moving forward? But the assist, the creation for teammates, and then the defense, like where does that end up being? I think sometimes I defer to you have to defend at Houston because that's what Sampson demands of you. And we've seen this history of guards in the Jamal Sheds and, even Marcus Sasser when he was there, be good defenders. So I need to watch that more to see how consistent and how good he is on that end. But absolutely the biggest riser, name that is jumping up at least my board, and I assume boards for a lot of people.
Yeah. So like I got some notes from scouts that went down to Houston and saw them that like, hey, Flemings looks pretty good. He just wasn't a guy that I'd seen a lot of in high school, to be honest. Like I hadn't watched a ton of his games. So I wasn't totally sure, like, okay, do I really rank him like in the mock to start the year? Is that something I do? Ultimately, I didn't, right? And I had 4 other Houston guys in the mock. And I think that a bunch of those guys still have a chance to go in the first round, right? I think that Senak certainly will go in the first round almost. But I think that Flemings has been their most impressive freshman to this point, maybe their most impressive player, to be honest. Just the speed. Like the immediate like blow by speed, the way that he plays with real burst is what immediately jumps off the screen at you. Then also plays with like real deceleration as well and has some pretty good footwork to be able to get to the rim and score. Also is like a pretty nice, comfortable mid-range game that I like. I thought that was pretty impressive in the couple of games I've watched now from them. He has real counters. Like he has the ability to get into that mid-range area. He loves the elbows, can stop on a dime and really pull up. I mean, I'll tell you that like the consensus from scouts is like, this is definitely a one and done. It feels like to me right now. We'll see if that continues moving forward, but like feels like a one and done. I like the way Houston is running their offense. They are having him be like a point guard, but also having Uzan out there with him to take on big moments, to communicate to his teammates, to like be a steadying presence with him. I think that's making life like way easier. He's also getting a lot of opportunities off of closeouts, which I think is just lethal for him because he's so fast and because teams are just closing out on him heavily still. I do want to see like where the ball screen reads are. He does have like a tendency right now to get up in the air a little bit too often or too early and then not know exactly where he's going to go with the ball and then try and make a read. Like jump passes are good and jump passes are cool, but you have to have a plan when you jump. And I think he doesn't really have the plan like totally down yet. And then defensively, like it's a real adventure, to be honest with you. I think that it's going to take some time for him on that end. Kelvin Sampson was pretty clear about that as well in some of the comments he made after the Auburn game, which was pretty fun. But I'm really interested. And the burst is real. I want to see where the shooting settles for sure. Right now, he is 6 for 12 from 3 on the season. The mechanics are kind of funky, but like looks very comfortable from the mid range and has made shots to this point. So who am I to say that, he's not a shooter on some level, right? But, could very easily, I think, like he will be in the conversation, I think, to be the third guard taken behind Darren Peterson and Michael Brown. I think that's kind of where this is now with him.
Yeah, I mean, really, really good. I'm just looking at mine. Yeah, I mean, I want to see some more. I'm a little bit slower, but I would probably just like, for me, it's like him, Phylon, Bennett, Sturts as I continue to watch more. And the nice thing is, as we've mentioned with, other guys, some of these games will have already been played by the time people are watching, but we get them against Syracuse Monday night. So last night, maybe while you're watching this, or, maybe right before, you get Houston versus Tennessee on Tuesday, and then potentially another big time matchup from the Players Era Festival Championship, whatever they call it, Players Era Festival. So like we're going to get some, most likely 3 good matchups for him and Houston this week, as along with Florida State coming up on, December 6th. So, that's what I love about Feast Week, is you got a lot of really good matchups. That's not just good basketball, but a real opportunity to evaluate these players.
Yep. I think that's right. Really excited for him. He is the big winner so far. I think he's probably been the biggest riser out of the pre-draft process to this point, to where people were in the preseason on him, just having some questions on him early on. So shout out to Kingston Flemings. The next question I wanted to ask you, Bryce. We've watched Illinois play a couple of really good teams.
Yeah.
We have, watched them play certainly Alabama, which was quite fun last week. They also played Texas Tech. Who is Illinois' best prospect? This is a team that is in the consensus top 10 right now. They look really good. They look like an awesome, fun team. They just have a bunch of dudes. Andre Stojakovic is, I believe, leading the team in scoring. Then you have the David Mirkovic dude.
Boswell is by 0.4, but yeah.
Okay. So you have Kylan Boswell, who's a senior, but is still, I believe, 20 years old as a senior. If not 20, he's 21 then.
Hold up. He's 20 till April.
Yeah, I knew he was quite young. Yeah.
That's insane.
He got to Arizona at 16.
Wow.
You have the Avicic twins, Tomislav and Zvonimir. Tomislav has just gotten back recently. You have Ben Humrickhouse, who is a shooter, and I don't think he's an NBA player, but another guy. And then you have the guy who kind of came off the radar this year, who's a prospect outside of the consensus top 200 in Keaton Wagler, who is the 6'6" wing who's been awesome for them this year. So, Bryce, before I answer, I will ask you the question. Who do you think is Illinois' best NBA draft prospect?
So right now I have Stojakovic. Stojakovic and Wagler are, I think, the 2 that I'm highest on out of everybody. I would say that's probably pretty consensus, maybe not having Stojakovic higher than Wagler right now. But that's where I'm at. Obviously, I did the breakdown on Stojakovic recently. Obviously, very concerned about the shooting. I mentioned this whenever, in the breakdown, that, just because he's Peja's son doesn't mean he shoots it well from 3. He has not so far in his career. His free throw percentage is horrendous right now this season. And, there's defensive things as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Wagler ends up being the higher one by the end of the season. We'll see. I want to see. I will tell you who I found myself really enjoying was Mirkovic. I
have no idea what it is, but it's very fun.
It's awesome. Here's one thing on so here's why I'm probably a little lower on Keaton than others. It's the Cam Boozer thing from earlier. He has destroyed Jackson State, Florida Gulf Coast, Colgate, and Long Island. Alabama and Texas Tech, 19 points on 5 of 18, 1 of 7 from 3. The numbers are just vastly different in those 2 games than they are in the other ones against that other competition. So that's why I'm being a little bit slower than maybe others are.
And for what it's worth, it's the same for Mirkovic as well. In those 2 games, they are, he has a 39 true shooting percentage. He's an 18 defensive rebounding rate. In the other 4 games that they've played, let's say in totality, Mirkovic has a 60 true shooting percentage and a 29 defensive rebounding rate. So totally different numbers depending on the level of competition so far for Mirkovic as well. I think where I'm at is I think Wagler is their best long-term prospect. I don't know if Wagler is a 2026 guy. He might not be, frankly. Like he might be more of a 2027 guy. I don't think it would be 2028, but I am at least interested enough in his ability to kind of do everything is the easiest way to put it. Like he's one of those guys who's kind of good at everything, not great at anything right now, while also still only being like 185 pounds at 6'6" as like a wing with, it has like reasonable length. It looks like maybe not crazy length, but passes well, makes good decisions. I think can shoot it is kind of my read, like has a pretty good looking touch, maybe a little bit low over release point on the jumper, but you know, a guy that I think has been impressive as an offensive rebounder. You know, he is one of those guys who just kind of gets his nose into places and knows kind of where he's supposed to be. I think Wagler is probably the one who looks the part the most to me right now. I think that the second guy I would say is, I guess I would say Mirkovic right now, if only because like we're watching Derek Queen.
Sure.
And it's working on some level. So yeah, I think that's like obviously totally different players. Like Mirkovic is a totally different player than Derek Queen. Like he has none of the natural like driving ability that Queen has, but I think I would say Mirkovic right now.
So it's funny that you bring up how watching somebody in the NBA right now kind of like lets you see some sort of vision, even if it wasn't 1-to-1. I think I'm probably a little higher on Stojakovic than I should be, because I watch him and what he does, and it reminds me of what Jaquez is doing with the Miami Heat right now in terms of just like this downhill force, even though maybe like there's some questions about the shooting or whatever. And that's probably foolish to think that like, okay, well, Jaquez is being super successful right now. There's going to be a path for Stojakovic to be successful, because Jaquez is like in a really perfect environment for him to be this successful right now. And so I understand because of the lack of shooting, the defensive concerns, some of that. But with all of that said, Sam, Stojakovic is the guy that has performed in those two games, scoring almost 50 points in the two games against Tech and Alabama. So I'm probably riding a little higher than I should be on him in this moment. But that's where I'm at right now until we get more sample.
I think that he has a real chance to go I think he probably will get drafted at some point is my take. I just need to see way more in terms of the shooting and passing.
Yeah.
Is the reality. Like
that's fair.
The footwork has gotten way better. Like I remember him coming out of high school, like it was like kind of shooting and like could drive a little bit more than what people thought, but like he was more of a let's shoot and attack closeouts and things like that. Like he can create a little bit right now, which is really exciting. And he gets to those like foul line areas and can knock down shots from there. He has this really left align jumper where it like comes off of literally like the left side of his face. And then he like kind of brings it back to the middle almost as he releases. And I think those things are really hard in the NBA to like make work. So I wonder if his trainer kind of tries to work with him and maybe, you know, tries to bring it a little bit more toward the middle like Alonzo Ball did. He was a guy that had like a really left line jumper in college and then brought it a little bit more toward the middle in the NBA. I think he has touch. Like, I think he very clearly has some touch, but like he hit 82% from the line last year. He's been terrible from the line.
Dreadful.
Outside of that, like just a very strange player that I'm still figuring out. This entire Illinois team, like I'm still trying to figure out is the reality.
Yeah, because like you said, they have the Ivisic brothers as well, which are...
You could make a case to me that Tomislav is the most interesting prospect on Illinois, and like he just hasn't played a lot yet, so you know, is what it is. But if you wanted to make that case where you're just like, yeah, I don't know if I like any of the perimeter guys, and Tomislav is 7 foot tall and will definitely play in the NBA, like just on the basis of being a shooter and being massive and being able to like rebound for his position and every like. I'll hear that out if you want to make that case, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I say. Like I find myself honestly with both of them. I've always been a little higher on Tomislav, but both of them is just like, yeah, these guys are massive and they space the floor. Isn't that what I'm always looking for in a big to put into a rotation somewhere or on a two-way? So a bunch of really interesting guys that right now, like none of them are first round pick guys. And like you said, with like even with Wagler, like is even a this year guy. Like how many of these guys over under 0.5 of these guys get drafted in the 2025 draft?
2026 draft.
Stupid.
It's hard because like most of them still have some time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I think I would say over 0.5.
I should have done 1.5 would have been better.
Yeah, like 1.5 is where it gets hard because you could sell me on like 3 of these guys getting picked if they like make a deep run and they just decide to ride the wave, or you could sell me on like none of these guys.
There's a real world where none of these guys.
You could sell me on them all going back to Illinois next year.
Yeah,
except for Boswell, who's out of eligibility, and Homer House too. But then they also have the Petrovic kid too, like Mihailo Petrovic, who's like just starting to get back in. And he's not a draft prospect. I believe he's gone through the process, if memory serves. I think he's 22, but like they just have so many dudes that I don't know where it goes, I guess is my point. Fascinating team. Like one of the teams I'm most interested to keep watching in college basketball though, because they have a really, really fun group. They play Connecticut on Friday. Ooh. That's probably the game of the week that I'm like most interested in watching, frankly. Sure. Down to that and one other game. So let's close with this.
Okay.
Massive amounts of things going on in college basketball this week. This is feast week. On Monday night, before this goes out, we will have Gonzaga, Alabama. We will have St. John's, Iowa State. We will have Baylor, Creighton, Auburn, Oregon, like awesome slate of games. But from Tuesday onward, what are the games you're most excited to watch here coming up?
Yeah. Week? So real quick, I do want to mention I'm excited for that Baylor because Cameron Carr is a guy that's really interesting to me right now. And so seeing what he looks like in these couple of games, I think is important and will be a lot of fun. You just mentioned that UConn game. I think that one is going to be on Friday. That's got to be the best one.
There's one other contender to me. Houston, Tennessee.
Okay.
Houston, Tennessee is a big one for Nate Ament. I want to see what Ament can do creating shots against that massive Houston front line that will be difficult to score against, that is athletic, that is, God knows they are physical and how they defend, even with these freshmen. Like you have Senek, Ament, you have Kingston Flemings against a tough Tennessee perimeter defense. You have like so many different things to watch for in that game. And I think that's one. I think Connecticut, Illinois is one, just because I think that the Underwood staff and obviously the Hurley staff are both really, really good in terms of how they, match up with opposing teams. North Carolina, Michigan State is a really good one, I think, too.
I was just about to bring that one up because we saw Caleb Wilson be awesome against Kansas. And then we really haven't seen the matchups to at least kind of the way we go about things. I haven't watched him since. Like, obviously you keep track of box scores and stuff like that. But that was actually one that I was going to bring up, was them against Michigan State on Thursday, because I'm ready to evaluate and watch him again.
Yeah, I want to see what it looks like against super high level teams again. That's a big one. You brought up Arkansas, Duke. I'm really interested to see what the Arkansas dudes look like after a really rough game, I thought, against Michigan State for both Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff. I know Acuff went for like 16 and 6 and only had one turnover, but I did not like the process that he displayed in that game. And then Malik Thomas, just went 2 of 9 from 3 and, just didn't really make shots, unfortunately. But, has looked better against the mid-major competition, against Winthrop on the 18th. He had 26 points and I thought looked really, really good. Shout out my Pittsburgh guy, Malik Thomas. But, that's another big one. Like, what do those guys look like against Duke? And then what do they look like, the next week against Louisville? The Arkansas duo as the freshmen are really important, I think, to filling out the depth of this draft class if they can. Any other ones that you're looking at?
I would just say, not that they're like primetime matchups, but Iowa is out in California and will play Ole Miss and then Utah. So getting a chance to evaluate Bennett Sturts in a couple of games against, whoever ends up being, Ole Miss. Those will be a couple games where I'll
Ole Miss will be a genuinely difficult game.
Yeah.
Like that's a good team. I think Mississippi.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. Just kind of, I'm just looking through my board and guys where it's like, okay, who do I want some more early season data stuff on? And Sturts is definitely one of those. And so those would be a little bit more quote unquote under the radar or whatever.
Yeah. Like Ilias Kamerdine for Mississippi has been quite good so far. They still have Malik Dia. We are getting like a AJ Storr resurrection after what was a truly, truly rough season at Kansas last year, which is fun with Mississippi. So yeah, I think that Iowa against that Mississippi team, where that team does have some pretty real like athleticism to try to bother that Iowa team, I think will be really, really fun. And look, that Iowa team just rocks so hard, man. Like, we probably at some point, like, we'll have to have a conversation about Isaiah Howard, because he just like kind of ticks the box score across a lot of things that we really like. As a sophomore, probably not for this year, but then Fulgaris is another one that is one that we really have to watch. How long can Fulgaris go without turning the ball over is our question here, because I think right now he has like a 15-0 assist to turnover ratio or something crazy, running that offense from the high post with Sturts as the point guard. So really, really fun group, like really, really fun team, the Iowa Hawkeyes, that I am thrilled to watch with Sturts against like some real teams here outside of Xavier finally.
For people that don't know, he's a 6'9" forward that was at Robert Morris the last couple of years.
Gators, this is.
Yeah, that was shot 41% from 3 last year at Robert Morris and is shooting 53% right now at Iowa, while having a 16-0 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew it was like pretty wild high.
Yeah.
I think that's like kind of a good endpoint for us, Bryce. We're excited. We're going to break all this down next week on the show, everything that we just talked about here for the last 5 or 6 minutes. And it'll be a big show next week. We might actually go over that hour mark that we desperately try to avoid going over with this show. So Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, obviously the Substack, the Game Theory Substack as well. Make sure you guys are subscribed there, where, yes, we give NBA video breakdowns, but going to be a lot of college basketball, NBA draft video breakdowns. I would assume a lot this week. I'm hoping to get a couple in because I'm not teaching this week with Thanksgiving break. And then, of course, right here, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie.
Man, you guys get a full week for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The other school that I attended as a student and then first started teaching at, we only got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But where I'm at now, we just kind of like almost like a fall break or whatever. We get the whole week off. So just me and the kids all week.
We got a half day Wednesday and then like Thursday, Friday, and that was it.
Yeah.
What a great area you teach in, Bryce. How about that?
It's not bad.
Go to the Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. There will be a lot up this week for sure. I have Derek Queen that is up already. And then I might take Tuesday to relax a little bit before the madness of some of these other games kicks in from college. That's where we're at. that's what's going on here. Go to The Athletic, keep me employed over there. I enjoy working there. It's a great place. You will get a lot of really good stuff there too. I'm sure I will have to write up a whole lot of things coming up the following week about what's going on with draft prospects. So go there. Keep it locked here. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys immensely. We're up over 84,000 subscribers over on YouTube. It's a crazy number. Like, we appreciate everybody that is going to subscribe to this thing and hangs out with us. I think that the last 8 or 9 episodes we're averaging somewhere in the vicinity of like 30,000 listens, like 30 to 40,000 listens over on YouTube alone, not even including the podcast feed. So we appreciate everybody that is coming through and is discovering us and is choosing to stick around and hang out and have a good time. So we will be back later this week with more. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.